coming back to the game after a 6-month break, my first question was, what has changed? After asking a couple of people, I know all of them said pretty much the same thing, not much. So I decided to read the patch notes, and while I was doing so, I came across a section called Project Resolve. Interesting, I said. Let's see what this is about, and then I read this. So, as you can see, almost every single assault rifle in the game got a buff, and big ones if I might say so, except the ones that I was using all those years, the Police 4, the Carbine 7, and the FAMAS. And that was when I decided it was time to do some testing. So what I did was, I farmed and crafted all the high-end assault rifles in the game, and compared them to each other. Keep in mind that in this comparison, I did not include any named assault rifles because their talents complicate things, or any exotics, again because talents complicate things. Now, how did I do the comparison that we're gonna talk about? A, we take the base damage of a weapon. B, we take the RPM of that weapon. C, we multiply the base damage of that weapon times the RPM of it. D, divide the number that we got by 60, and 60 because each minute has 60 seconds. So we're gonna break down how much damage we do each second, and voila, we have our damage per second number. Couple of points before we get into all the numbers and things like that. The base damage does not take into consideration any type of damage bonus attributes like critical hit damage, headshot damage, damage to armor, damage targets out of cover, and all that. The RPM must always be calculated without any brand sets, talents, or mods that could increase it. That was something that I was very careful about not mixing up. So let's see an example. Let's take the Police 4, which used to be my favorite weapon for the past 4 years. The base damage that it has is 44.2k. That's 44,200. RPM of it is 850. 44.2k times 850, we get 37,570,000. Divided by 60, we get 626,166 damage per second. And that's our DPS. So what I went to figure out with this was, what's the weapon that has the best damage per second if we do not include anything other than just the base damage of the weapon. I don't care about critical hit chance, critical hit damage, none of that matters here. I just want to see what's the weapon with the highest DPS. So I created a nice Excel document and started doing my math, and the results were surprising, at least to me. I made 4 categories depending on how high or how low the DPS of each weapon was. We have the green category, which is the S tier, that's the highest, the best weapon, so to say. Then we have the blue category, which is A tier. Yellow is the B tier, and the red category is the C tier, which obviously are the worst. As you can see, I also kept count of how many mod slots each weapon has, because it could make all the difference if the DPS numbers between 2 weapons, one with 3 mod slots and one with 4 mod slots, are so close that just by adding that, let's say 5% critical hit damage, when you eventually put all the stats into the equation, that the weapon with the 4 mod slots would be on top. I also make sure to mention the magazine size of weapons that come with less bullets in their magazine than most ARs do. Before we get into the best and the worst weapon, what was a very, not sad, but disappointing realization is that even though this list contains 26 weapons, in reality there are only 16. The other 10 weapons are exactly identical with some other weapon. For example, the ACRE and the ACR have the exact same numbers in every category: DPS, RPM, magazine size. They both handle exactly the same, so I don't see the reason of having the same weapon with 2 different names on it. Or another great example is, of course, the FAL, which comes with not 2 but 3 versions of it. G36C, again, 3 versions. MK16, 3 versions. I never really understood why, I never saw the point of it, and I think it's pointless if we're being honest. It's just a cheap way for the developers to claim that they have 26 assault rifles in the game when in reality they have 16. With even 16 assault rifles, it's not a bad number. Now, another sad realization was the fact that the Police M4 and the Carbine 7 are in the red category. Both of them with less than 50k damage per bullet and less than 630k damage per second are two of the worst weapons in the entire game. And just a couple of months ago, those two were the best go-to weapons. And that's why they literally buffed every other weapon except them and the FAMAS. The TKB with 58.8k per bullet and 637,000 damage per second was another surprise. I was expecting it to see it much higher on the list. Moving on to the blue category or the A tier, not a lot of surprises here. The FAL almost reached 650,000 DPS, which really isn't that bad. What holds it back, sadly, however, from reaching the S tier or maybe even being the best performing weapon in the entire game is the magazine size being 10 bullets smaller than the S tier weapons. The S tier was honestly what surprised me the most. I wasn't expecting the AKs, especially the AKM, to reach so high numbers. 672,000 damage per second is a lot. However, what surprised me even more was the F2000 reaching numbers like 676,500 damage per second, with its damage per bullet being just 45k. I want to remind you at this point that the AKs got an 8% weapon damage increase buff, and that's why you see them score so high, and the F2000 got an extra 50 rounds per minute and an extra 10 bullets in its magazine. I was very happy to see the FAMAS holding up, even though it was one of the very few weapons, as I said already, that didn't got any buffs. And then we have the PDR coming in with 663,883 damage per second. That, I didn't see that coming. 700 rounds per minute, 56,900 damage per bullet. It's overall the best option for anyone who wants an average speed weapon, not too slow like the AKs, but also not as fast as the FAMAS, and when it comes to the weapon handling, right down the middle. Not too hard to control, not too easy. And at the same time, of course, they want to have a high base damage. With all that being said, there is only one question left to answer. Which is the best out of the four of them? FAMAS, F2000, AKM, or the PDR? So here comes the most important factor when it comes to figuring out which weapon in the entire game is the best to use. And the answer is really simple. And it's two parts. First part is your playstyle. What weapon suits your playstyle? And the second part is the weapon handling. Weapon handling in this game is an attribute that a lot of people overlook, don't give it too much time, but in reality it makes all the difference in the world, because as we just broke down, the difference to the damage numbers really isn't that big in this game. Doesn't matter if you go with the best assault rifle or the worst assault rifle, both of those two weapons are going to be able to get the job done, assuming you're using it to its best. And what I mean by that is, if you take the F2000, you don't want to be 65 meters away. If you take an AK, you really don't want to be 5 meters away from the enemies. If you take an ACR, for example, or the PDR, which is in the best category, the PDR is great from medium ranges. It's perfect for medium ranges. It has great weapon handling, it has great accuracy, great stability, great optimal range, so you don't need too much in order to make it work. A FAMAS, on the other hand, doesn't have, it's not good at medium ranges, or at least it's not as good as the PDR. The recoil for some people can be too hard to control. Optimal range, not that great. Accuracy, stability, all that kind of stuff, not great. What does the FAMAS really have that makes it that great? That insane RPM, those 900 rounds. You go up to the enemy's face, you blast him with an entire magazine in less than 5 seconds, and you're done. He's dead. Why? Because it spits out bullet insanely fast. Use it to your advantage. So as I said, the F2000, for example, might have higher DPS than an ACR, but if you're more accurate with the ACR, if you just hit 2 more bullets per minute with it, you will get more DPS. So the reality is that even though most of you came here looking for the absolute best assault rifle to use, and even though I'm going to share with you which in my opinion is the best assault rifle in the game, I really recommend you to try most of them out, figure out which one you prefer the best, which one has the best handling for your like, which one fits your playstyle the best, and then just play with that. If you like to play from medium ranges, the FAMAS in the F2000 won't be that good. Meanwhile, the ACR and the MK16 and the PDR are all going to be great options. With all that being said, I tried out all the S-tier assault rifles and my conclusion is this. The F2000 and the FAMAS are so close to each other when it comes not only to RPM but also on the way they handle that it's very hard to distinguish them, so to say. The F2000, however, it is a little bit easier to control, and that's the only reason as to why I think it has the upper hand. The AKs are all too strong and hit like trucks when it comes to damage per bullet. However, their accuracy and their handling in general are not that great, at least for me, and definitely don't suit my playstyle, so it's a no for me. The PDR honestly has everything. Decent RPM, decent base damage, and pretty good DPS. So I can confidently say that most players will find it to be the best for them. And that's because if you play at medium ranges, it's great. If you play at close ranges, it's also great. Not as good as the FAMAS, but as we just said, the difference between their DPSs is so small that it's very hard to notice. For me personally, just because I like the high RPM and I run Striker most of the times, the F2000 with the extra RPM and the 50% weapon handling fits my playstyle better. An important side note here, in case you decide to go with the F2000, is the fact that the F2000 has a named version called the Seal Splinterer, with a perfect Optimist talent on it, which offers 4% instead of 3% weapon damage for every 10% bullets missing from your magazine. I will make a separate video about it because it's easily one of the best weapons all around, even when you compare it to exotics and named assault rifles, but if you already have it, make sure to give it a shot. After the latest update, it's amazing. However, it is a little tricky to get. With all that being said, that's it pretty much. I don't have anything else to add or mention. Just make sure to try most of the weapons out in this game. They're all decent weapons, I would say. It doesn't matter what you use. If it's in the same category, at least nowadays, you won't find any big differences. You won't find a weapon being super strong, meanwhile others not being that good, especially when you're not taking exotics into the equation, simply because exotics have some very unique talents that can push them over the top. With all that being said, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to drop a like. It took me quite a long time to actually put all this together. It's not something that I usually do. I very rarely do guides, if you wish, like this one. But every time that I did, you guys seem to enjoy them and to like them, so I decided to give you another one. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your support. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye bye.